guys, it's Isabella here and welcome to a new video. So this is going to be a discussion video, but this is not going to be on film. This is going to be on disabilities, and more specifically mental health and basically neurodivergence. Since that stuff affects so many of us, even though it seems like it's so little of the population. So without further ado, let's just get into this very important topic. So first I'm going to start with some definitions. So neurodiversity is a word that just means the unique ways people's brains work. Everyone's brain basically works differently, regardless if you have a neurodivergent issue or if you have mental health issues. And the word to describe someone who doesn't have these type of disabilities is neurotypicals, which is basically someone whose brain works in ways that are mostly similar to most people, basically similar, basically not displaying like autism or other neurological conditions like atypical patterns of thought or behavior. So basically neurotypicals often assume that their experience of the world is either the only one or the only correct one. And I think this has a lot to do with majority versus minority, which I will go over later. Anyway, and then the last word I want to define is neurodivergence, which is basically someone whose brain processes information differently to the average typical brain, such as ADHD, Tourette's, OCD, autism, intellectual disabilities, and many, many more. And I just recently discovered that I am actually included in this neurodivergent community, and I had no idea. And yeah, let's just get to the next part of this video. So there are a lot of points I'd like to address, and I've written them all down so my OCD doesn't get bent out of shape. Because apparently OCD is under the bracket of neurodivergence, with all of these really tough like disorders and things. And I'm like, how is OCD in any way comparison to, like, it can compare to Tourette's or autism? Like, those seem like pretty major issues, and OCD being on the list was kind of weird. That's probably why I never knew I was neurodivergent to begin with. It's kind of like, OCD is part of that? Really? I had no idea. But obviously, as a diagnosed person with OCD, I guess now I can identify as neurodivergent, which I know many people do. Anyway, I want to talk about not just neurodivergence, but also mental health. And the first thing I'd like to say about that is how awareness for everyone should be mandatory in schools, or just like for everyone. I don't care how it's done, but school is probably the best way. And the reason awareness is important is so that people can recognize when they need help. I certainly had no awareness of mental health disorders or neurodivergence at 13. And so I had no idea what was wrong with me at the time, and I was suffering a lot in high school because of this. And if I knew about these things sooner, I could have gotten help sooner, because high school is already hard for neurotypicals. But for those with neurodivergence or mental health issues, it's even harder. And so I think awareness is definitely something important. And I also think awareness is good for the rest of people as well, like other people who may in the future, let's say, have to accommodate someone neurodivergent or with mental health issues, so they know how to, like, they basically have to know how to help these people, right? But if they're not aware of these issues and how to help people, then they're not going to be able to accommodate people who need that extra little bit of a little lift. You know what I mean? But it's also good for everyone to be properly aware so there are no misconceptions, stereotypes, or judgments placed on those who are different. And I think a lot of us who have these issues also get scared of what people will think of us if we come out and say we have these kinds of disorders and diagnoses. And I think that also adds anxiety to things. So yeah, that's my first point. Something I can say as a person with obsessive compulsive disorder / OCD is I think a lot of us can say we hate when people say, oh, I'm OCD as well about so and so, when they don't have a diagnosis. I'm like, that's not OCD. That's just being cleanly and liking a clean space. OCD is very, very draining. I know my mind gets stuck in loops and it's so hard to get out of them unless I write things down. And that can be so exhausting mentally. And sometimes some OCD habits can be physically exhausting. And I don't think people, like regular neurotypicals, kind of understand that these issues are very different. OCD is not just being very cleanly or like being a little bit worried about things. It's more than that. And I think that's why awareness is also more important, so people stop saying things like that. To continue from the point I just made, I'd like to say something else I don't like is when people say, I struggle with this situation just like you, or this thing just like you. You're not any different from me. And I absolutely hate this. I hate when people say this. It feels like you're diminishing me, or the person who has the disorder / diagnosis. And it feels like you're diminishing my difficulty to handle the same struggles, because they are most certainly not the same at all. My brain does work differently than a neurotypical's, even if I'm struggling with the same thing you are. For me, it's harder to deal with that thing than you. And that's because of an actual brain chemical imbalance. It's not something you have. You don't have this issue. So just don't say this kind of stuff to people that you know who are suffering through things like this. Neurodivergence and mental health, it makes us feel so angry. And yeah, just making that a point for you guys to know. Something I'd like to say about my high school years was a lot of the time I used to think that I was the problem, that there was something wrong with me. And the truth is that over the years and recently, I've finally found myself in a place where I can see my diagnosis as me being special and unique, instead of seeing it as a negative thing. And now I'm much more happier with myself than I used to be. I used to kind of not really like myself, and that was a really hard time. And now I've come to realize, as I've been able to manage my issues and be able to live with them, I feel like I've finally come to believe that I am special, and that's something to celebrate, and that we don't want everyone to be the same, because if everyone's the same, it's just boring. So in the end, I've come to see it as a good thing instead of a negative thing, and I think everyone out there who's watching this should feel the exact same way. You are unique and you are special, and there's nothing wrong with that. I also want to say that a lot of society, well, basically society likes to categorize everything and everyone. And human beings can't really be categorized into a one-size-fits-all system. Just because it's easier for the establishment, because that's what they're doing. The whole reason they try to fit all of us into one system of like education or whatever, or one way of learning, is because it's easier for the establishment to manage. But we can't fit into a box. We can't all fit into the same box because we are all unique, and some of us have more challenges than others, and some of us learn differently, and that's okay. Speaking of this, it kind of reminds me, now that I think about it, which I didn't think about it a while ago, it makes me think about the Divergent movies. And I never thought of them this way, but it makes me feel like neurodivergent people are basically divergents. We're kind of cool. But the reason it makes me think of the Divergent movies is because, to be honest, people in real life don't like minorities or don't really notice minorities. But people don't like the minority because they're people who don't fit in the bubbles that they've created, right? The system that they've created to organize and keep things in check, right? And the reason they don't like people like us is because it causes them more difficulty to accommodate them. Like, I have to get extra accommodations in college, but there aren't any like special courses I can take designed for people with mental health or brain differences. There isn't like a different college you can go to for kids with disabilities like that, like neurological disabilities. And that's something that they could really use some of. But yeah, basically they don't want to accommodate us or change the system because they believe that the system works, and they make it seem like there's something wrong with the people who don't fit in to these bubbles rather than the system failing us. So sometimes, like, that's how it used to be a lot more. Now it's getting better, but I still think there's a long way to go, because I still feel like people have this mentality that, like, at least a few people definitely still have this mentality that something's wrong with people who don't fit into boxes, rather than the system being the problem, and that the system needs to change, or there needs to be another system in place for people with neurological disabilities. And I think that there could definitely be more done in the school systems. We have that for autistic kids, and quite a few. But I've known some kids with less severe autism that are high functioning, and they're just put in regular classes, and it doesn't work. And it's just, they're trying to fit us into a system that isn't made for us, and it won't bring us success. And the aim of society should be the success of everybody, but that's not how it is. And some things need to get better. I think the last thing I'd like to say is just be kind to everyone. And I know that this is such a cliche thing to say. Like, everyone's like, we've heard this a million times. Like, yes, be kind to everyone, be kind to people, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, it is extremely important. You may not think it is, but in that moment when you're at your worst and having such a hard time, it means a lot. And you don't know what a person might be going through. And it doesn't always show on the outside, especially for neurological conditions. Like, you'd look at me and you'd be like, you don't look like you have OCD. Well, I do. And you doing so-and-so is making me very, very annoyed. Please stop. And it's just, I feel like if a person can't see that someone is struggling, they don't think about it. And I think we need to be more aware that there are conditions in the brain that are not physical, that don't show themselves on the outside. And so it's important to just be kind to everyone, because everyone's fighting a battle, but there are some people who are especially fighting a hard battle, and it's important to be kind to one another. So thank you guys for watching. I thought this was an important topic to talk about, not just because neurodivergence is important and mental health is important, but also because awareness is important. And I really think with more awareness, we can help future generations recognize their issues, and that way we can help them sooner and not allow them to suffer alone for so long. And I think that that's something I would have loved to have when I was younger. Some more knowledge and experience, and yeah. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Yeah, and I hope that I've helped some of you out there. And yeah, see you guys in my next video. Bye-bye.